My name is Alice. When I was growing up, my twin sister Anna and I were very different. She was like the perfect daughter, but I wasn't. Our dad was a university professor who spent all his time with books and lectures, while our mom focused on taking care of our home and us. They always wanted us to be like them, which meant I often felt like they were critiquing everything I did. My mom's favorite thing to say was, "Alice, why can't you be more like your sister?" She'd compare us, especially when I didn't act the way she wanted. Anna always followed the rules and got praised, while I preferred being alone and wearing clothes my parents didn't like. One day, before a boring party we had to attend, I decided to rebel a bit. I wore dark makeup and boots instead of what was expected. My mom wasn't happy and tried to make me change, but I refused. I was tired of pretending to be someone I wasn't just to please them. My dad got involved and told me to change, showing his disappointment without yelling. I felt like I didn't belong in my own family. But in my room, covered in my drawings and posters, I found solace. It was the only place where I felt like I could be myself without judgment. One evening, my dad interrupted my music and asked why I hadn't studied with Anna. They always expected us to do everything together, but I just wanted to be left alone, he said, his voice stern. I pulled out one earbud and looked up at him, trying to stay calm. "I've been studying, just not with Anna. I learned better on my own," I said. Dad shook his head, not believing me. "You know the rules. Your sister gets good grades, and you should too. I don't understand why you always have to make things difficult," he said. "It's not about making things difficult," I replied, feeling frustrated. "I just don't see why I have to do everything the same way Anna does. Can't I have my own way of studying?" He didn't answer that, just moved on to another complaint. "And those friends of yours, I saw you with them at the cafe yesterday. I don't think they're a good influence. You should spend time with the daughters of my colleagues. They're more suitable," he said. I felt my anger rise. Suitable for what? For you? Because they talk about economics and pretend to enjoy those boring university gatherings? Before he could respond, Mom appeared at the doorway, her voice sharp as she joined in. "Alice, your father is right. Those girls are from good families. They know how to behave. They're the kind of friends you should want." I stood up, facing both of them. What if I don't want friends who are picked for me? What if I want to choose my own friends, choose what I study, or even what I want to be? "That's enough, Alice," Mom said firmly. "You know your future is with the university. Your father has made sure of that. And after you graduate, you'll need to start thinking about settling down. We've already discussed this." "Settling down," I repeated bitterly. "You mean start thinking about being someone's wife, like Anna? Is that all you think I'm meant for?" Mom's face softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. "We want what's best for you. Following the path we've set out will give you a good life." "A good life," I said bitterly. "Is it a good life if it's someone else's idea of good?" No one answered. We all knew there was no point in arguing. They had their plans, and they expected me to fall in line, just like Anna. What's necessary according to everyone else? Did you ever think of that? Her voice softened, but her eyes were determined. "Liz, I'm just trying to look out for you. Dad's not going to be around to sort things out forever. What are you going to do if you keep alienating everyone?" "Maybe I'll figure it out on my own. Maybe I don't need to follow Dad's roadmap or yours," I shot back, feeling defiant. Anna sighed, her frustration evident. "You're so stubborn. Just try, okay? For me, if not for yourself. Show up tonight, talk to Professor Hall. It won't kill you." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just my annoyingly perfect sister, but someone who actually cared in her own way. "Fine, I'll think about it," I conceded, not ready to promise more. "Thank you," she said, her smile returning. "It's not that bad, you know. You might even like it if you gave it a chance." "Doubt it," I muttered, but I knew I'd lost this round. For Anna, I'd show up, sit through another boring discussion, and nod at the right times. It was just a few hours, I told myself. How bad could it be? As it turned out, not as bad as I thought. Professor Hall was surprisingly interesting when he wasn't lecturing from a podium. I even asked a question, which earned a shocked but pleased look from Anna. Later, as we walked back to our dorm, Anna nudged me. See, not so terrible, right? That fragile peace didn't last long, however. In our last year, Anna introduced us to her fiancé, a lawyer 10 years her senior, already well established, and exactly what our parents dreamed of. Mom and Dad were over the moon, praising Anna for making such a smart match, and immediately turned their expectant eyes on me. Now, Alice, it's your turn to find someone suitable, Dad said one evening over dinner, his tone implying that my time was running out. Mom nodded enthusiastically, already planning out my life as if it were another one of her well-organized home projects. Think about your future, dear. Someone who can provide for you, who has a good standing, she said. I remember staring at my plate, feeling the walls close in. Anna's wedding was meticulously planned down to the last detail by Mom, from the bridesmaids' dresses to the floral arrangements, showcasing her perfect vision of family prestige. After the wedding, Mom often visited Anna, doling out advice and ensuring her life played out just as she had orchestrated. Witnessing this, I knew one thing for certain. I didn't want my life tailored by someone else's hands. One day, as I was walking down the street lost in thoughts of how to escape the life my parents envisioned for me, I heard the deep rumble of a motorcycle approaching. Curiosity pulled me toward the sound. That's when I saw him, Peter, with his leather jacket and carefree smile, pulling up beside me. "You look like you need a ride," he called over the roar of the engine, a playful twinkle in his eyes. I hesitated, glancing back towards the path home, then at his outstretched hand. What did I have to lose? Sure, why not? I replied, my voice a mix of nerves and excitement. Climbing onto the back of his bike, I felt a rush of adrenaline as we sped away. The wind whipped through my hair, and for the first time in a long time, I laughed genuinely. Peter shouted something about showing me his world, and I held on tighter, not wanting this moment to end. We stopped at a diner frequented by bikers. Over burgers and fries, Peter told me about his life as a welder, his passion for bikes, and his love for the open road. It was so different from anything I was used to, raw and real. "Don't you get scared living like this?" I asked, my voice barely above the clatter of plates and chatter around us. Scared? No, it's thrilling. You never know what's around the corner. Isn't that better than having everything planned out for you? He replied, his eyes lighting up with each word. Over the next few weeks, we met secretly. Each ride on Peter's motorcycle pulled me further from the life I was supposed to live and closer to the life I wanted. The speed, the adventure. It wasn't just about the thrill. It was about feeling alive, feeling free. One evening, as we watched the sunset from a secluded overlook, Peter turned to me. "Alice, I don't just ride to escape. I ride to feel alive, to make every moment count with you. Every moment feels like it's worth something." I leaned into him, my heart beating fast. "I've never felt like this before. You make me feel free, Peter," I said. He smiled, pulling me closer. "Then let's not go back to just existing. Let's live." 6 months with Peter felt like a lifetime of moments I'd always dreamed of. The day he proposed under the stars, with the gentle rumble of his bike in the background, my heart screamed a yes before my mouth could form the word. It was perfect, except for one looming hurdle, my parents. I wrestled with the fear of introducing Peter to them. He was everything they disapproved of, his rough edges, his wild spirit, his simple yet content life as a welder. But love bolstered my courage, and I decided it was time they knew. The day I brought Peter home, he was clad as usual, a leather vest, black t-shirt, ripped jeans, and a bandana. I loved that about him. He was unapologetically himself. As we walked up the driveway, I could already feel the weight of my parents' judgment. As we stepped inside, Mom's face went pale at the sight of Peter, her eyes widening in shock. "What in the world, Alice?" she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. Dad's reaction was harsher, his words sharp as knives. "Who is this, and why is he dressed like a thug in our house?" I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves. "Mom, Dad, this is Peter. He's the man I love. We're getting married." Their silence was deafening. Then, Dad turned to Peter, his tone laced with disdain. "Married? What do you do for a living, young man? What are your qualifications?" Peter, bless him, didn't waver. "I'm a welder. I took some specialized courses after high school. I work hard, and I make an honest living." The look on my parents' faces was a mix of horror and disbelief. Mom looked like she might faint. "A welder, Alice? You can't be serious." Dad's voice rose, anger flaring. "You expect us to give our blessing to this? To throw away your future for a welder?" I felt my resolve harden. "Yes, because he makes me happy. Isn't that what should matter?" "But the life you'll lead." Mom started, her voice trembling. "Will be the life I choose." I shot back, my own voice gaining strength. Dad shook his head, his decision clear. "We cannot and will not support this. If you choose him, don't expect to be a part of this family." The finality in his tone broke my heart, but not my decision. Peter squeezed my hand, giving me the strength to face them. "Then I choose Peter. I choose us. I choose my happiness." Mom's eyes filled with tears, and Dad's jaw clenched tight. "If you walk out with him, don't bother coming back," Dad said, his voice cold, walking away. Walking away from my parents' house with Peter, my heart was a mess of emotions, pain, relief, excitement, and fear all mixed into one. The night air felt different, like each breath I took was a step further into a new life. We rode in silence for a while, the only sound the steady roar of the motorcycle beneath us. When we finally stopped at a small diner on the outskirts of town, Peter turned to me, his face serious. "You sure about this, Alice? I mean, really sure? There's no going back after tonight," he said, his eyes searching mine for any hint of doubt. I nodded, squeezing his hand tightly. "I've never been more sure of anything. Being with you, this feels right. It feels like what I'm supposed to do," I said. He smiled, that reckless, charming smile that had won me over the first day we met. "All right then, let's do it. Let's start our life together." Inside the diner, we found a quiet booth in the corner. The waitress brought over 2 coffees without asking, and we sat there, planning our next steps. "So, what's first?" I asked, stirring cream into my coffee, watching it swirl and blend. "We'll need to find a place to stay, at least for a while. Then, maybe look for jobs. I have some buddies who can help us get started," Peter replied, his tone practical but optimistic. "It's going to be tough, isn't it?" I said, more a statement than a question. The reality of what we were doing was beginning to sink in. Peter reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "It might be, but we'll handle it together. Tough is nothing new for either of us, right?" I couldn't help but laugh, a short, sharp burst of genuine amusement. "Right, together." We spent hours in that diner, talking and planning. Every so often, Peter would throw out an idea that sounded so wild, so free, that it made my heart jump. "And maybe one day we'll save enough to take that road trip across the country. Just you, me, and the open road." "I like that," I said, allowing myself to dream bigger than I had ever dared. Riding back into the city, we began our search. The next weeks were a blur of activity. We found a small apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. Peter found work at a local garage, and I picked up shifts at a nearby diner. Life was hard, but it was ours. We made do with what we had, and every night when we came home to each other, it felt like we had everything. Months later, we decided it was time to make it official and got married in a small, intimate ceremony. I held on to a sliver of hope that my family would show up, that they would see how happy I was and let go of their prejudices. But the chairs reserved for them remained empty, and no congratulatory messages came. Despite the sting of their absence, the day was perfect because it was ours. Over time, I grew incredibly close to Peter's mom. She welcomed me with open arms, calling me her daughter, filling in the gaps left by my own family. Her warmth and acceptance healed some of the wounds left by my parents' rejection. Things were finally looking up for Peter and me. After he completed additional diving training and became a certified underwater welder, his income shot up to $150,000 a year. That change made a world of difference. We managed to buy a townhouse in a nice area, the kind of place I'd always dreamed about but never thought I'd actually live in. I started working as a dispatcher in Peter's company. It wasn't just a job. It felt like I was part of something important, supporting the man I loved and building our future together. On weekends, we escaped the city on his bike, roaring through winding roads and taking in breathtaking views of nature. Those moments with the wind in my hair and his warmth against my back were pure bliss. Living nearby, my mother-in-law became a frequent visitor. One such afternoon, while Peter was tinkering in the garage and I was fixing us some coffee, she arrived looking a bit troubled. "There's been some ugly news," she said as she settled down at the kitchen table. Something about a professor at the university involved in a harassment scandal. My heart skipped a beat. Oh, did they say who it was? I tried to keep my voice steady, dreading the answer. She shook her head. No, they didn't mention a name on the radio. But you know how these things go. It's probably all over the TV by now, I said, nodding. I flicked on the television, tuning into the news. Sure enough, there was a report on the scandal, and as I had feared, my father's face appeared on the screen. The anchor detailed accusations against him, and I felt a cold wave of disbelief wash over me. Turning off the TV, I sat down heavily, trying to process the news. Peter came in, wiping his hands on a rag, and saw my face. "What's wrong, babe?" he asked, his brow furrowed in concern. I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. "It's my dad. He's been accused of harassing a student." Peter's expression hardened for a moment before he came over and took my hand. "I'm sorry, Ace. That's tough news. How do you want to handle this?" I shook my head, not really sure of anything at the moment. "I don't know. I mean, what can I even do? It's not like we're close anymore." He squeezed my hand, understanding. "Whatever you need, I'm here for you. We don't have to figure it all out right now." I decided to wait and see how things unfolded before making any moves. Whatever decision I made, I knew I'd have Peter by my side, and that was the reassurance I needed to face whatever came next. Life had been peaceful until that unexpected afternoon at work when a familiar car pulled into the parking lot. I hadn't seen my parents in a long while, and the sight of them stirred up a mix of emotions I thought I had put to rest. Both of them looked dramatically changed. The scandal had taken its toll. Mom had lost a lot of weight and looked years older, while Dad appeared broken, a shadow of the stern man he once was. My mother spotted me and rushed over, arms open as if nothing had happened, as if years of distance and disapproval could be bridged in an instant. But I couldn't embrace her, not now. Instead, I stepped back and took Peter's hand, looking for strength in his presence. "Alice, it was so hard to find you," Mom said, her voice cracking with emotion. "Dad, ever the gruff one, cut to the chase, his voice harsh and bitter. I was accused unfairly, you know. I went to your sister's husband for help, but that bloodsucker wanted a fortune. Your sister sided with him, and now they've kicked us out. We need your help. I stared at them, disbelief and anger swirling inside me. Help? After all these years, you show up and demand help. We have nowhere else to go. Mom's voice was desperate. They've disowned us too. We thought maybe we could stay with you. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Stay with me? After you disowned me? You made it clear I wasn't your daughter anymore. Dad's face turned red, his old temper flaring up. You owe us, Alice, after all we've done for you. That's where you're wrong, I interrupted, feeling Peter squeeze my hand in support. I don't owe you anything. You threw me out because I chose my happiness over your demands. And now you want what? To just move in and pretend like we're a family. The situation was spiraling, and I could see people watching, a crowd beginning to form. Mom started to cry, her sobs loud and attracting even more attention. You're being ungrateful after everything we've done for you, she accused through her tears. I took a deep breath, my decision clear. No, Mom. I'm not ungrateful. I'm free and happy. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. As we walked away, I heard my dad yelling, but Peter leaned over and quietly told the security team, "Don't let them come here again." The following months flew by, filled with love and peace. We welcomed a son, a new beginning in our growing family. My parents never came back. That day in the parking lot was the last I saw of them. And while part of me grieved for what could have been, I knew I had made the right choice for me and for my family.